Welcome to Rocket Time, the only show that covers the Huntsville Rockets of the Gridiron Developmental Football League. And this week, we say, down with the Vikings. The Huntsville Rockets launched themselves to Memphis, Tennessee this past weekend to take on the Tennessee Vikings and beat them for their first win of the year. That means the Huntsville Rockets are now 1-2 on the year uh, with losing the first two games of the year. On June 21st was their first game where it was actually a forfeit loss because of different organization issues with the Huntsville Rockets. Were not able to show up to that game, so the Tri City Outlaws sadly got a win from that one. And actually, on June 28th, which was their second game, it was a loss at the Racine Raiders. And you're probably wondering, we've heard the Racine Raiders before, and that's because they were playing as the Alabama Beavers. So the Alabama Beavers became the Huntsville Rockets within the coaches and most of the players. And so that game they lost 13-12 at Racine. And then this past weekend we finally got our first win of the year at the Tennessee Vikings, 18-12 on July 12th. The Rockets are now second place in the Gridiron Developmental Football League Extreme North Division, just behind the 2-0 Tri City Outlaws, who we have a chance to beat this week. Now we're going to go to the game summary. The Huntsville Rockets started out hot in their game versus the Tennessee Vikings. Within the first quarter, on the first drive of the game, the Tennessee Vikings had a bad snap on the punt that led to a good field position for the Huntsville Rockets. And then 2 plays later, after the botched snap to the punter, Rockets running back Jermichael Cribbs ran the ball for a 3-yard touchdown to make the Huntsville Rockets get up 6-0 after the end of the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, Astros linebacker A.J. Kreider had a 55-yard pick six that they ended up scoring. But above times that the Rockets scored in the first half, they went for two. They did not make it, which made the halftime score 12-0 for the Rockets, as the Rockets are looking to dominate this game. But then the third quarter happens, and Vikings quarterback Omarion Anderson had a 10-yard rushing touchdown to make the score 12-6 at the end of the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter was an absolutely crazy quarter of this game, where the Vikings DB Namon Johnson had a 50-yard pick six to tie up the ball game 12-12. Both teams did not make a 2-point conversion this game, but then with 23 seconds left in the game, Rockets quarterback Christian Briscoe ended up passing to wide receiver Rayshawn Hewitt for a touchdown with 23 seconds left. The Vikings had one last Hail Mary, but it ended up going to the back of the end zone to make the Huntsville Rockets win 18-12 in just at the last second win, where we start out very hot, but then we end up going down in the second half. But then at the last second, 23 seconds left, the Rockets ended up pulling away with this one. It was a incredible finish for the Rockets, as this week we did not blow it like we did against Racine at the last second. This time we won it at the last second. And that was your game recap versus the Tennessee Vikings. As we all say, down with the Vikings. This week, the Huntsville Rockets have their first home game of the year versus the Tri City Outlaws, who are 2-0 in first place in the Gridiron Developmental Football League Extreme North Division. So whoever wins this game will be number one. And this game's going to be on Saturday, July 19th. The stadium is not in place, so on this week in Alabama Alt Football, I will post what the location is for that little segment of that video. And then here's a preview of the Outlaws. The Outlaws are 2-0. Of course, they had the forfeit win versus the Rockets on June 21st, but then this past weekend, a just dominating 22-0 win versus the Mississippi Dogs last weekend. And then the Outlaws score early, just like the Rockets. So the Rockets were up 12-0 last week at the end of the first quarter. The Outlaws were up 22-0 at half, which ended up actually being the final score of that game. But then the Outlaws and the Rockets both go for 2-point conversion. It happens a lot in the Gridiron Developmental Football League, just because these teams don't really have the roster spots for kickers, and so most of them do go for the 2-point conversion. As the Outlaws actually went 2 of 3, though, unlike the Huntsville Rockets, 0 of 3 uh, 2-point conversions. So they are a little bit more solid on 2-point conversions. But this game actually got canceled in the fourth quarter due to just rain. It was rain. It was raining really bad, so then they had to cancel the game. Which in the Gridiron Developmental Football League, whoever's up at the rain delay, rain cancellation gets the win for that one. So the Tri City Outlaws, who are a really good team in the Gridiron Developmental Football League, ended up pulling away with a victory 22-0, as all of their points did come in the first half. Though the top players that the Rockets have to stop is running back Darius Mitchell, who had 95 yards and 1 touchdown for their team. Just a really good running back. And then also on defensive end, Devontae Homer, who actually had 1 forced fumble that they ended up returning back for a touchdown against the Mississippi Dogs. And this is probably the biggest matchup of the year, at least in the Extreme North Division. Two teams that are, the top 2 teams in the 3-team conference facing up. The winner will get first place in the Extreme North Division. The Rockets and Outlaws are of course, Gridiron Developmental Football League Extreme North rivals. And then actually, this is the first and technically only true matchup of these 2 teams. As last time, of course, the Rockets had to cancel that game due to organizational issues. So this is the first true game between the Outlaws and the Rockets. And my prediction for this game, sadly, I think that the Tri City Outlaws are going to win 24-14 against the Huntsville Rockets. The Huntsville Rockets kind of got a little bit lucky last week. They blew their first game. They almost blew the last game. This team, I mean, I'm not doubting that they can't win, but just the Tri City Outlaws are one of the best teams in the GDFL. And that's our preview of this upcoming game. Well, that's all we have for this week's first episode of Rocket Time with the Huntsville Rockets, as uh, as we beat the Vikings, and then we have another potential game of the year versus the Tri City Outlaws, 2 teams that are rivals. One's in Clarksville, Tennessee. One's in Huntsville, Alabama, battling it out to try to find out who's the best team in the Extreme North Division. And then this is a big game. It's at home, so make sure you show up. And then I will have the location of the game on This Week in Alabama Alt Football later this week. So make sure, if you can, to show up to the game and support your Huntsville Rockets, as this is all for Rocket Time as we blast off into next week. UFL Isaac, Huntsville Rockets, out.